Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. Hello, good travelers. We are at the final moment, a little bit of practice tomorrow morning, final day of our Rohatsu Sesshin. And we have been pooling our collective hearts, our collective energies, our will, our tenderness, and even our resistance has all gone into this potent mix of Rohatsu, whichever year culminates in this night where we remember the Buddha's night under the tree, long night. And in fact, many practitioners at Rohatsus all over the world will sit through the night on this last evening. 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4. That's quite a powerful practice. And even though we are attracted to lovely pictures of the Buddha, watercolor paintings of him sitting under a lovely tree, I imagine it was more like much of our experience when we go to Sesshin, that there are moments that were cold and windy and lonely and hard. And that in the human mind of sitting the night or sitting a week of Sesshin is this mix of intuition, desperation, perseverance, sleepiness, doubt, all in this incredible samadhi. So the Buddha's night under the tree, after which he awoke to the morning star, is actually a very condensed tale, condensed expression of an entire life of practice. And those who have been practicing Rohatsu this week, we've tasted bits and pieces of his story. We have, many of us, drawn to this practice, drawn to this retreat, asking questions about old age, sickness, and death. We long in our hearts to know and taste the truth. We have a deep hunger for stillness beyond the usual reactivity. And some of us this week received, like the Buddha, help from surprising places, some kindness, some nourishment, some encouragement to keep going. We long for that stillness beyond our usual sleepwalking through this life, to be vitally alive and vitally awake, to not be pushed and pulled along by all the wins and losses that are always ongoing. So in retreat, we keep returning to Zazen relentlessly. We come back again and again, and sometimes it just seems crazy. There's the bell again, back to the cushion. Letting go into nowness over and over again, immediacy. And this bell that has been guiding us this week continues on after we leave this retreat. It's a memory in the body, whether at work or play, in traffic, in the garden, the bell says return. So as Mushin so beautifully described last night, when we sign up for Sesshin, we are signing up for a shipwreck. Welcome. We are fully shipwrecked. What a beautiful metaphor. And I ask, is it necessary? We might ask, is it necessary really? But I look in my own experience and those I know on the path of practice, and without this kind of disillusionment, without things being stripped away, we might never explore the ocean upon which we're always sailing, the deep ocean. We might never look beyond our own small, comfortable cabins. that we redecorate and clean with our tiny portal out onto the world. Because it's true, I too am a creature of comfort. I want to hold on to the usual, the things I know, to stay safe, picking what I like, discarding what I don't like, trying to fix problems so they're finally done. But this way of life is an unhappy way of life. This is what Buddhism teaches. It's an anxious way of life. So in this shipwreck, there's actually good news. And good news is here. If we look around, we've got lots of company. We have many good friends on the path who share our troubles, our hopes, and our joys. So how do we come to know this deep ocean? I can say sailing on, but actually swimming in. Well, that kind of knowing is not engineered. The knowing we seek is not a frontal assault. It's not willed. I'm not sure if you've noticed this week, but much of the time, we just simply slip in. We just simply slip into it. We slip into samadhi, despite ourselves. We say, I just woke up that way. Not, we didn't think our way into it. There's no force or no violence done to the mind. We just simply apply the method and let it do its work. This is why in the Precious Mirror it says, so minute, it enters where there is no gap. So many of our openings happen in this small space between excessive effort and overly relaxed. Slips in the gap. And there it is. Reminds me of our cat. Some of you know Ray Ray, our black cat. Kind of lives in the house, but kind of not. So when I go home at night, especially when I come up on the deck and it's really dark, he's in the shadows and I open the door and zoop, he's bouncing around the living room. How did you get in here? Right? That's a little like our awakening experiences. They slip right in despite us. We just open the door. Now, this is what Kyogen told me once when I went to him with my sense, many of you have experienced it this week, of despair in practice, how hard it is. It's so hard. And yet there's this promise of this amazing opening. How am I supposed to reconcile the gap between those two experiences? But he had a way of calming and saying something very down to earth. So we have all this grand language to speak of awakening, and that's purposeful. Grand language helps us not go to sleep with it, points out something incredible. But also it's good to use familiar language because it says it's also right here. So he said to me, you know, it's just like slipping out a too tight pair of shoes. That's awakening. Stepping out of a too tight pair of shoes. What a relief. These shoes are our limiting beliefs. Too small a space for us to really function in this constricted self. The old instructions on how to assemble a life are completely out of date. These tight shoes are all our narrow stories that we are become so intimate with on retreat. Stories about ourselves, our capacities, what's possible, what's not possible, what help's available or not. In this endless intrigue and elaborate comparison to others. This is what we are with and face in Sesshin. It's so interesting that the cure for these tight shoes is to put ourselves in another kind of tight space called zazen. It's a bit paradoxical, but all I know is it works to release us from this mind's bondage. But here's the price of admission. And I had a laugh, speaking of slipping in. I don't know if you noticed, but 2 mornings in a row, I had an interesting experience. Mushin smiled both times. And I love the precious mirror samadhi. So I love chanting it, even though I hear that you didn't hear it all the time because of the tech. But I feel very, very reverential and I know it intimately. And so I just called out precious mirror samadhi, and mirror, you can say mirror, but if you're chanting, it's kind of like mirror. But when I said it, I said, precious Mara samadhi. The Mara just slipped out of my mouth and I had to correct myself quickly. So I did that once, but then I did it a second time today. And I said, okay, I can't let that go. It reminds me of how teaching is teaching despite yourself. So I had to listen to what slipped into my retreat. Totally unexpected, like a cat in the building. But immediately I knew what that teaching was and how perfect and complete that title, the precious Mara Samadhi. Mara is essential to the Buddha's story and to our retreat. As many of you know, Mara is the embodiment of delusion, anxiety, fear, loneliness, anger, numbness, distraction, all forms of Mara. And there, in the mirror of Sesshin, we look back and see ourselves. That's our shadow. Mara always slips in as a stowaway on this ship called Sesshin. It's reliable. So in the story of the Buddha's awakening under the tree, just briefly, because I want to bring out one piece of it, he was determined. He was on his last stop. He said, now or never. And so with an incredible resilience, he sat. And when we make that kind of vow, invariably all our demons arrive. It actually says something about the worthiness of the vow. So Buddha is at first, and this might sound familiar this week, at first assaulted in a kind of more physical realm. Mara raises his armies and throwing arrows of flaming fire. But really that's a nice way of saying the kind of flaming fire we feel in the body, the aches, the pains, the fatigue, the body's changes, our fears of this body not holding up, our fears we can't take the pain or the tired. But the Buddha sits still and sees through that. It says, and this is his samadhi, that the arrows they turn into flowers, which is to say, with equanimity, that pain is not life-threatening, just phenomena. So he successfully fields that. And then secondly, the Buddha is tempted, and of course in a very gendered story. The Buddha Mara sends his 3 voluptuous daughters to tempt the Buddha. Thirst and desire and aversion, his 3 daughters. And the Buddha is unswayed. I remember when I was teaching at the Peace Village, little children, it seemed improper to use the 3 voluptuous women to teach them about the seduction when you're 6 years old. Instead, we made pictures of pizzas and cell phones, dangled them to enact the Buddha's temptation. Probably even more seductive, right, than sex, your cell phone. Anyway, So the Buddha successfully feels that. But here's the interesting part I want to bring out for this retreat. As the last resort, Mara has one more powerful weapon. And he challenges the Buddha and says, and I don't have there's many translations of this, but something like, who are you to sit there? Who are you to claim this enlightenment? Who certifies you? But I'm going to condense that into a modern version that I think we have something floating inside, which is this, which is, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Actually, I had a Zen teacher friend who said his father used to say that to him all the time when he was young. It became his koan and his liberation. Who do you think you are? So this is a pivotal moment in practice. Sometimes we are assaulted by self-doubt in a very overt way. But I'm speaking about the really subtle aspects of this, who do you think you are? The subtle ways we might feel fraudulent, unworthy, not quite adept at this Zen thing, or enlightenment itself. And when we harbor these subtle messages in the unconscious, we tend to be guarded and hold out. We hold something back. We hedge our bets. Well, if this doesn't work, there could be something else. We risk the very thing that's needed, which is to lean completely in Zazen, to lean into Zazen. We're afraid we can't do it deep down. Some of us carry those messages, told it's not okay to take up space. Not okay to take up space. Somehow learn to have to justify our existence. And that we carry that into practice in subtle and not so subtle ways. That we are somehow lacking. So this precious Mara Samadhi is important. Because when he or she arrives, we should say, thank you, my friend. Thank you, my friend, for coming to help me. Because it's through Mara that we really discover who we are. We actually need Mara, as did the Buddha. The Buddha faces Mara with no violence, with no trickery, strategy, no escape, no outrunning, not even therapy. The Buddha simply reaches out his hand and touches the earth. What's here? That would be wordless. That would be enough. Although he says, earth is my witness. And then Mara and his armies disperse. No violence or trickery. We look Mara in the eye, because Mara's eyes are our eyes. We look in the eyes with compassion. We are always tested on retreat. And much of that test comes down to that, who do you think you are? Earth is my witness. And it's only in this moment where the Buddha can actually take up the samadhi. This is the turning point in the evening where he starts to enter the watches in the night, where he deepens his understanding of his past karma and of the deepest samadhi in the fourth watch. He takes the diamond seat without defense, nothing to defend. So someone asked in Sanzen yesterday, as we turn back to this theme we're studying here, what is this samadhi really for? What's it for? I'm confused. And I want to address that because it relates to how we meet Mara, meet our shadow. And I think it's really, I'm simply reflecting back what came out in Daisen today. We can say, yes, there is one kind of samadhi, of zazen, that we study. We bring the mind to the present. It becomes still and quiet sometimes. We find equanimity sometimes. Sometimes it's effortless, one-pointed. In Sanskrit, the ekagata, one-pointed. It's refreshing. The mind is pliable, soft, open, ready. That's a samadhi that's conditioned, that we go into and out of. And probably, as many of you have experienced, it's not easy when we're not on a retreat where we're sequestered in a quiet zendo, away from all our stuff. I know my samadhi is less deep in that way without that setting. But this was an important teaching for Kyogen, that there is a bigger samadhi. And Dogen calls this the king of samadhis, the king of samadhis. So I'm going to read a paragraph from the king of samadhis. Dogen says that Shakyamuni Buddha said to the assembly, when you sit in the meditation posture, you realize samadhi in body and mind and give rise to an awesome virtue that people respect. Like the sun, illuminating and refreshing the world, this sitting removes obscurities from the mind and lightens the body so that exhaustion is set aside. Enlightenment becomes as natural as a dragon curled up at rest. A demon is frightened even by a picture of someone sitting in the meditation posture. How much more so by a living person who realizes the way, sitting motionless and at ease. Sitting in this meditation posture is forthright body, a forthright mind, a forthright Buddha ancestor, a forthright practice realization, a forthright life stream. Thus, we clearly know that sitting in the meditation posture is itself the king of samadhis. It is itself entering realization. All other samadhis serve the king of samadhi. All other samadhis serve the king of samadhi. Some of this language may seem grand, but it's actually incredibly straightforward. Straightforward beauty of zazen for zazen's sake. In Jiju Yuzammai that we chanted today, I love this line. It says it's like a hammer hitting emptiness. Its exquisite peal permeates everywhere, like a hammer hitting emptiness. Just this posture. Didn't say only when you're having a good time. That's not in the Jiju Yuzammai. It said your zazen now. This kind of zazen, I would say, scares away demons, but actually confuses them. It confuses our demons. They don't know what to do with it. Not taking the bait. It is just to be thus. Zazen is just to be thus. Willing, open, and forthright. Like the Buddha, when we are touching the ground, we say, I'm right here, wide open. There's nothing to defend. I claim my birthright to exist. I claim my birthright to exist. Who do you think you are? My answer is exactly. It's the thinking that I am. That's the problem. It's the thinking I am, I am. I am this, I'm not that. That's the problem. So, a little update on Descartes. I don't think, therefore I am. I and all beings are thus awakened. This Zazen says, whatever comes, I'm ready. Was that not what we did today and talked about? Each one of us. Yes to life. The art of Sesshin, yes, and this, and this, and this. There is no power like it. It's almost too simple. That's why the flowery language, or we might miss it. We have to trust something beyond our own human designs. It is not dependent on passing states of mind. It is not dependent upon our judgments and evaluations of our practice, which are like the weather. Our constant comparisons and evaluations of our practice just slow us down. This mind is touching the ground. This mind at once enacts right effort, and clarifies our motivation. Enacting right effort and clarifying our motivation are far more important to come from our Sesshin than any passing state of mind. What a beautiful phrase. To sit in Zazen is to enact a forthright life stream. Forthright life stream. What is forthright? Open, honest, free-hearted, direct, candid, unguarded life stream. So whatever depths of realization we achieve, and we can talk in those terms. Many people are deeply realized. But that's secondary to this kind of Zazen, because this kind of forthright life stream is engendered by gratitude and appreciation and compassion. And as those states emerge, then we are offered endless support on the path. Endless support. We see it. Everyone's helping, even Mara. I actually think we should designate a seat in our Zendo specifically for Mara. No one sits in it. It's actually right. I'm going to have right over here Mara's seat. We can have collective Mara and serve tea. It's helping. We must turn towards what we fear, all our misery, our self-doubts, everything in the mirror. We turn towards it with kindness and clarity and firmness. Clear. Don't mistake myself for Mara, but I know Mara is part of me. Without Mara, we would not know humility. We would be like the stories, the ancient myths of the gods and goddesses in Tushita heaven, one of the 6 realms. In the heavenly realm, they're enlightened beings, but they're really full of themselves. And they're blind to what said they're aging until one of them looks in the mirror. And then they get really angry about this condition, and then they turn into the Asuras, angry gods. Those are very deep teachings. That's a condition without a Mara. So we need this Mara. He's our ally, and she's our ally. We do step out of these too tight pair of shoes permanently. It's true, we can try to get them back on, but if you've noticed in your own practice, they hurt worse when you try to put them back on. Ouch. It really hurts to go back in that small space. I'm going to keep practicing because it doesn't feel good. That's how we all get here. 1 year leads to 2, to 5, to 10, to 20, a lifetime of practice. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? No idea. But we're here to help. And thus the Buddha stepped out under the shadows of that lovely tree, enjoying his enlightenment. And he walked off into the world. That's the king of samadhis.